Recognizes Mr. Stanton.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, Mr. Secretary. Thank you for being here today. There are several topics I'd like to cover in the short amount of time, but let me start with a simple thank you. Brittney Griner is an important part of the Arizona community, someone I know well. She's a friend of mine, and I want to thank the President, the team at the State Department, the SPHA team, as well as you personally, Mr. Secretary, for your commitment to securing her return to the United States. My staff worked closely with your team throughout the process, and I cannot say enough about SPHA's professionalism and commitment to returning wrongfully detained Americans, and I am truly in awe. And as we both know, there are many more wrongfully detained Americans abroad, including Paul Whelan, and I am fully committed to supporting you and SPHA to giving you the tools to work towards the return of our fellow citizens. My first question is about Afghanistan. Mr. Secretary, I'm sure you know better than anyone that one of the most important things our nation needs, and you need personally when carrying out our diplomatic mission, is credibility. When we issue a guarantee, we better deliver, and we have an obligation to take care of those who help protect our nation's security. 2 weeks ago, this committee heard about the continued struggles facing our Afghan allies, including those who worked alongside American forces and risked their own lives to keep Americans safe. I've been working with a group of about 50 Afghan women called the Female Tactical Platoon that was embedded with our cultural support teams and other units, and they've run into many problems in trying to secure their status here in the United States. The clock is ticking. If we don't secure their permanent legal status soon, not only will we have fallen short in our commitment to do what's right, but I fear it will be remembered by the next group of people we ask to help us. Can we count on your personal involvement, working with Congress and other parts of the administration to secure the legal status of our Afghan allies?
Yes, and I very much support the Afghan Adjustment Act. We need to do that.
Mr. Secretary, I want to turn now to fentanyl. Many people think of this as strictly a law enforcement issue, but as you know, there's an important diplomatic connection because our ability to fight the epidemic in our own country relies on our cooperation from other countries. Much of the chemicals used to make fentanyl that comes across our border originate in China. Cooperation on that issue with China began to deteriorate in 2019 under the previous administration, and it has continued on that path since. There have been challenges with Mexico as well. President López Obrador dropped all drug enforcement cooperation with the United States during the last administration, and he continues to be a difficult partner. Drug trafficking and the violence wrought by drug cartels is an important issue to me, not only as a member of this committee, but as a representative from Arizona, and I believe there's an important need for diplomatic efforts to see a meaningful impact. Mr. Secretary, how is the State Department using diplomatic pressure to regain Mexico and China's cooperation in stopping the flow of drugs?
With regard to Mexico, because this is at the very top of our agenda for all the reasons that we've already discussed in terms of the #1 threat that it poses to Americans, last year we agreed with Mexico to develop a joint synthetic drug action plan to expand cooperation with Mexico to deal with the problem of fentanyl production and transit from Mexico, bringing in not just law enforcement, which is obviously critical, but things like the health and trade and regulatory agencies, because when it comes to legal precursors going to illicit use, it's important to bring them in as well. We've stood that up. We've seen in Mexico over the last year a record number of seizures when it comes to fentanyl. We've seen a record number of disruptions of the places where fentanyl is produced, but it also goes to the point that there is a sea of this stuff. And as you know very well, as members of the committee know very well, you can produce it in a room the size of the corner of this hearing room. So it's a massive effort, but the Mexicans are engaged in that because we have restored our diplomacy and engagement with them. They're putting more police resources into it as well. I mentioned earlier the importance of the technology that's being deployed to the ports of entry at the border, where 95% of the fentanyl is coming into the United States through those legal ports of entry. The technology that we have to screen for it is effective, and we need to get more of it out there as soon as possible. I know we're working on that. And then more broadly internationally, as I mentioned earlier, for the first time I was able to get on the agenda of the G20, the 20 largest economies in the world, including China, fentanyl and synthetic opioids as an issue that we need to work together. We'll be establishing a working group in the G20 on this, and in my own engagements with China, this has been very much at the top of the agenda. We need their cooperation one way or another on this. I hope that they will come to actually cooperating. If not, we'll have to look at other actions that we can take to elicit more cooperation, particularly when it comes to the diversion of licit precursors into illicit use.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. I yield back.
Chair recognizes